I started Sucker Punch almost the day that they shipped inFamous 2. So when I came aboard, they had already started formulating their plan for what they were going to do on the next generation of Sony hardware. And we didn't even know what it was going to be called at that point.
So when we started working on a PlayStation 4 game, there was no PlayStation 4. The specs were kind of theoretical. The controller didn't exist.
The idea was, hey, we're going to have to do a new engine. We're going to have to do all kinds of crazy research into what's possible on this new hardware. Let's not also build an entire new world and story and game design while we're doing that. Let's carry the inFamous franchise into the next generation.
And Sony said, hey, here's what we think it's going to be. What do you want? That's a big deal. We said, we wanted, the hardware to do this and the controller to do this.
They sent me to Japan to meet with the hardware team and give them just a presentation on what a game designer would like out of a new controller.
Imagine for a second, you were tasked with making a brand new game controller. Now, seriously, think about it. Would it have would it feel like bicycle handlebars? Would it be like a lightsaber? I don't know. I mean, but people have this job. And they say, hey, what do you think? And then you get to give feedback.
So it really was a chance for not only Sucker Punch to give feedback, but for all of the Sony studios to give feedback. Instead of making those decisions on speculation or theory or just the kind of preferences of the hardware team, they were able to look at what the studios would use it for and make a lot more informed decisions about how they should build a controller.
And they would fire us back with prototype DualShocks.
And a lot of these prototypes are made by hand at great expense, and then they would send one to us.
And we'd, mess around with them and then send more notes, and then they'd send a whole new prototype, and then another one and another one.
It was wide open. There was really no expectation that it would go in a certain direction.
You'd be amazed at the weird things people come up with, and just how small things change your perception of it in total.
And sometimes we would go, we would not use this. I have no idea what to do with this. And sometimes we would say, if this was a little more X, we would absolutely use it for this.
And they were daring. Sony was daring and coming up with a lot of different ideas and different features, a lot of which are not on what we see today because they weren't considered cool enough, useful enough, powerful enough in making game experiences easier to lose yourself in.
I cared about the sticks because I'm used to working on shooters and action games, but some of the other studios were really talking about the precision of the movement controls, right? Of the accelerometer and how responsive it was and how it needed to kind of resist the drift that you would get in a DS3. So everybody had their kind of evaluation of previous controllers and from lots of different styles of developer.
So the DualShock 4 we have today is the product of a lot of iteration, and it shows, when you have it in your hands.
We want more precise sticks. We want more precise triggers. We want more precise buttons.
Tighter joysticks, a lip on the sticks, having the triggers kind of bend forward, less dead zone on sticks.
The less slop that you get in the controller, then the more demands you can place on the player.
The DualShock 4 is, in a very pronounced way, better for aiming and shooting. It absolutely is the case. So I think people like that when they get their hands on the controller.
They're not going to be blaming the hardware for the fact that they missed that headshot. They're going to know they can improve their skill to hit that headshot.
You want the controller to be kind of like this psychic mind-reading device. And what's going on in the game, you want your thoughts to instantly translate into the action of the hero in the game.
As a designer, the best part about working on new hardware is that people don't tell me no all the time. So in the past, I'd get a combat encounter working just how I wanted it, and then some engineer would come by and say, you realize you have 15 AI active and we can only do 5 at a time, so I hope you can still make this work, right? Or if I'd have suggested smoke as the basis for an entire power source for a game on previous hardware, somebody would have said, that's great, as long as it's really bad looking smoke and you don't expect it to last very long or animate at all or be lit, then it's okay. Maybe you should pick something else, actually. How about bullets? And so now I make suggestions and I'm expecting to hear no right away, and instead I hear, yeah, we could probably do that. Yeah, we could probably take neon and make it into a bunch of powers.
There's an expectation with the next generation that it's bigger, better, faster, and it's all of these things. I don't think that's going to surprise anybody. The thing that's going to surprise people is what people can do with it.
The jump between previous generations and current generations, I feel like, is going to become being mostly in effects and kind of animation and motion. I think the previous generation got pretty good at making a good screenshot, right? The shaders and the reflections, you could make something that most people would say that looks really, really good. But then as soon as you got into motion, you know, nothing was dynamic, everything was kind of immobile and didn't change. And so this next generation is going to be a lot more movement, a lot more animation, a lot more explosive. As a designer, when I hear someone say, oh, okay, the graphics are as good as they're going to get, so we're going to take all that power and put it into AI. AI is not a hardware constrained problem, it's a design problem, right? It's not, can we get some enemy to do something? It's what should they do? And what is the right balance between making something that is capable and making something that is fun to play against? But because we have so many more capabilities for the graphics and for the simulation, that gives us more options to play with, right? We can make AI that when they're moving around, right, like they animate in a way where you can tell what they're thinking better. And so then we have more expressive ways to tell the player what they should be doing.
At the end of the day, consoles are computers, and the real kick in the pants comes from the software. And again, I think the controller is the biggie, the defining way that you really interface with the game and with the console. Second Son is a third-person action-adventure exclusive for the PlayStation 4, coming out in the launch window.